Hello everybody, my name is Weird and we're going to be talking about my art journey. So this is actually my senior project, so I'm going to do my best to give you about 15 years worth of art in 10 minutes, so let's go. It all started in the grand old early 2000s of cable television, where the obsession of Powerpuff Girls and Invader Zim, two shows that clearly have a lot in common. Whenever I got my first laptop, I started doing a bunch of weird one-layered art, and it was not very good. But because I had been doing digital art for a while, I was able to convince my parents to eventually get me my first tablet. Yay! Following getting my first tablet, I finally was able to break into Paintful Sai and start being able to make some real art. And not only was I able to make some slightly better art than the stuff I had been making prior, I was able to join my first couple of fandoms before I even knew what fandoms were. My first few fandoms were on DeviantArt, and I was involved with the Powerpuff Girls, which eventually turned into the regular show, which eventually turned into Adventure Time. And I got to learn a lot, both about being an artist and being in a community. Being as young as I was, I got to learn a lot of do's and don'ts, both in art and in fandoms. You're going to be seeing a lot of OCs, original characters, throughout this. I was able to make a lot of fan art in Powerpuff Girls and regular show, but I didn't really feel like the fandom or the community at the time, being on DeviantArt, was very super welcoming of OCs, which was something I had a little hard time learning about as a young kid. But whenever I joined the Adventure Time fandom, it was spectacular. Everybody was making their own characters, and it was very inspiring to allow me the opportunity to make my own characters as well. So I made some fairies, I made some bees, and it let me make more characters in those other fandoms I'd mentioned earlier. Eventually, I slowly started to develop my own style. You're gonna see it here with the eyes. And that was really great. I really enjoyed doing that. After a while, I ended up distancing myself from DeviantArt for just a little bit. It wasn't the community I really felt like being in at the time. Eventually, I did come back after the takeoff of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and holy cow, what a fandom to be a part of. It was a very large community, and I know it had some kind of repertoire for it, but it was one of the first communities I was in that I was able to have paid for commissions, which was a really big deal for me as a little girl. I had never had that before. I was able to buy myself more brushes, I was able to get myself tutorials and more art supplies with that kind of money, so I'm very grateful to have been able to be a part of that fandom at that time. Eventually, I ended up going into art school, which was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of technical skills, and I was able to really get into watercolor, but it ended up not being for me. There's a lot of stigmas when it comes to art, especially if you're into the kind of art I am into. While it would have been nice to go to some kind of Cal Arts type of school or something like that, I was more in a fine arts program, and I was heavily criticized for my more cartoonish styles, even whenever I was explicitly going out of my way to not draw cartoons. At one point, I was even trying to apply for a scholarship, which I didn't get, and I really loved the beautiful paintings that I saw other people do, and my professor was like, that's what real art is, it's not cartoons. And I was like, damn, okay. Even though I still felt like my art wasn't very cartoonish, and I was sure as heck trying my best, especially being the youngest student in that program at the age of 17. I eventually dropped out, but I made this beautiful Jessica Rabbit with a lot of the skills I learned, and I realized I didn't really need art school, especially if I was going to be surrounded by extremely unsupportive professors. After I moved out, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time to do art. I did do my best to try and keep up with it, but it just wasn't really happening, so eventually I just kind of slowly came to a stop, which I was really paranoid about for a while because I really thought it was going to severely affect my art. And it did, both in a good way and in a bad way. It kind of allowed myself a way to emotionally reset with my art, because a lot of it was for fandoms and fan art and other people, and a pressure to make something that the internet would like. It was just something that became very overwhelming for me at that time. Once 2020 COVID hit, I actually was able to make a lot more art. It was something that gave me the time, because I was trapped in my home for about 8 months before I could leave. So 2020 COVID gave me a lot of free time to rediscover myself as an artist. I actually started really making some beautiful pieces, and I was a little scared because I hadn't been making art for a couple years. And it took me a minute, but once I got the ball rolling, I realized that the break didn't really hinder me, and I felt like I had even improved, which was a big shock, but it was also a severe learning curve. At this point in time, I decided to upgrade to an iPad with Procreate. Most of my art with those other other fandoms mentioned previously were done on Paint Tool Sai, and I tried to go back to it at some point, and I just did not really get it anymore, which is gonna sound silly, but hey, what can you do? Then I joined the Twitter community, and that was really nice. I got to reconnect with some old friends through fandoms. I made a lot of friends through my fandoms back in the day, but unfortunately I lost a lot of contact with most of those people. Occasionally when a few of them pop back up, it's really nice. I really liked connecting with people back in the day. It was really difficult, especially because I wasn't super popular. Towards the end of my DeviantArt career, I was sitting at about 2,000 followers, which has now gone down to about 1.5. So I had started making some decent traction with people. Not everybody's super welcoming, if that makes sense. It made it really easy for me to want to lurk in my other fandoms going forward. Like Steven Universe was a big inspiration for me with a lot of my art, but I was too scared to interact with the fandom because of some of my previous experiences in other fandoms with other artists. A lot of my fears that came from interacting with people was just based on not being good enough. I don't know if it was just that early 2010s culture on DeviantArt or what, but a lot of people sometimes based on if you were worth talking to based on your skill level, which I never really liked because I felt like at the time I was pretty intermediate and I wanted to talk to everybody, whether they were big or small, and occasionally having that one person reach out and go, hey, no, don't talk to me again, you're not popular enough, your art's not good enough to talk to me, was a little damaging. I kind of got over that, but it also made it very easy to recluse here on the internet. And so now I'm finishing up this to show you guys where my art is at now. I'm still doing a lot of stuff on Procreate, I'm still doing watercolor. My favorite things to do right now is mostly just watercolor in general whenever I have the time, but my next two big art projects that I'm working on is this here YouTube channel, both to introduce you to me, but to get the ball rolling on what else it is I can do, because I do think video and video making is also an art form, which I'm very excited to jump into. And the other art form that I'm experimenting right now is trying my darndest to make a VTuber model. I'm having an easy time with the art part, but I'm having a very hard time with the turning it into a million tiny pieces part. So we'll see if that project ever finishes itself. But this is where I am right now as an artist. I'd have to say the journey was long with a lot of ups and downs. I learned what it was like to base my art off of other people and what it was like basing my art off of myself. I realized that there's a lot less pressure and the art is a lot more enjoyable if you just genuinely don't think about other people at all in any capacity. But I don't know if that's just me. I really enjoy making my art with my girls and my characters. Maybe one day I'll make a comic, who knows? I mostly wanted this to be an introduction to me, so welcome to my channel. My name is Sweard. I'm going to be talking about lots of things on this channel, such as art and cartoons, maybe some reviews, maybe some tutorials, just basically anything y'all would want to hear or whatever ends up coming to my mind. If you're an artist and you want to reach out, feel free to reach out to me here or on Twitter, which will be linked down below. I love getting to know artists of all shapes and sizes, and I would love to get to know and talk to more people out here on the internet. But in the meantime, my name is Sweard, welcome to the channel, and it was very nice meeting you. Stay weird, and I'll see you next time.